Good morning and welcome to this special event to mark the International Women's Day. It's organized by the European Innovation Council and the European Institute for Innovation and Technology, the EIT. Coming to you live from the European Commission's Research and Innovation YouTube channel. Thank you for joining us. Wherever you're connecting from, I hope that you stay safe and well. My name is Kinga Stanislawska. I'm the general partner and founder of Experior. It's a VC fund coming out of Poland. I'm also the founder of European Women in VC and a member of EIC Advisory Board. And for the next hour, I'm going to be moderating this panel discussion with some amazing women driving deep tech in Europe. For those of you who might not be familiar with EIC and the EIT, they were created for Europe to become the global hub for world-class innovation and technology, turning today's pioneers into tomorrow's global champions. I'm super excited to be joined today by three very talented women entrepreneurs who, with support from the EU, have grown their businesses from a great idea into a game-changing company that they are today. But before I introduce you to this panel, let me give the floor to the woman who's making all of this possible. Mariya Gabriel, European Commissioner for Innovation, Research, Culture, Education and Youth. Thank you, Mariya, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Kinga, dear ladies and gentlemen. I'm really very pleased to address you, especially today at this International Women's Day. Allow me to say that, first of all, it's a great honor to have you here together with us. For me, you are real role models. Please continue to inspire us. So what I would like to say today that, of course, we are here to celebrate women in deep tech, but at the same time, that's always very useful to see what is the real situation on the ground. And what I would like to say that today with this discussion, I'm sure that somehow we are witnessing a Europe's deep tech moment, because the opportunities created by the novel technologies and disruptive innovations promise to deliver the fair and sustainable recovery that Europe needs. And today we know that deep tech accounts for over a quarter of Europe's startup ecosystem. And European deep tech companies are now valued at a combined 700 billion euros and counting. But the reality is that deep tech remains a men's world, and women leading deep tech companies are few and far between. And the figures speak themselves. Today, 3/4 of startups in Europe are funded by men, while only 8% are funded by all women teams. And they only receive a 1.7% of the total funding invested in startups in 2020. On the contrary, 92% of the total investments in startups is allocated to all men founding teams. And I think that we need definitely to change these numbers, because I can go even further. Only 16% of startups have at least one woman as co-founder or founder. Moreover, the growth of women in tech career is delayed, and that's something very important, because 20.4% of women over the age of 35 in the tech sector remain on junior level positions, compared to only 5.9% of women over the same age. For women in deep tech, things are even harder. For many investors, the image of a successful technology leader in deep tech is associated with men. In the investors community, women remain underrepresented and often absent from decision-making roles. And this lack of diversity translates into low amount of capital invested into female-led and managed companies, resulting in a vicious circle. And there are plenty of evidence that increased participation of women improves the innovation performance of organizations and societies. Research shows that diverse, inclusive teams are more innovative and diverse companies are more profitable. However, if half the population is being overlooked as a source of innovation and creative talent, then Europe risks losing out on the opportunities created by new technologies. And more efforts are needed to transform the stereotypical image of a tech leader and give more visibility to female entrepreneurs and their companies. And allow me here to touch some concrete actions that I have taken to increase the role of women in the innovation ecosystem, because I think that it's very clear. You have my firm support. First, since I'm in charge of the European Innovation Council, you know it, Kinga, the number of women-led startups getting funds from the EIC has increased from 8 to 29% in 1 year. And my objective is to reach the level of 50%. I have been able to do this by ensuring that we increase the chances of women-led startups reach the stage of the oral interview while preserving always excellence at the selection criteria. It demonstrates that if women has the same chances as men-led startups, they can get as much support from venture capital style agencies like the European Innovation Council. Second, a year ago, I was really so proud to launch the European Women for Future campaign to bring a much needed recognition to the work of inspiring women working in research and innovation, as well as in education, culture, and sport. Because making European women visible, recognizing their achievements, and creating role models is of utmost importance. Remember, 3 years ago, I launched my campaign, No Women, No Panel. So today, I think that with this 1 year long European Women for Future campaign, we have an impressive database of women experts from across Europe. And so I wish, of course, that these passionate female role models continue to inspire girls and empower women. But what I would like to see too is to have them as experts in all our conferences, public events, because there is no anymore excuse that we don't have their contacts. So I very much count on you. Of course, we'll continue to support the European Prize for Women Innovators. That's another good initiative. Of course, now in Horizon Europe program, we have the gender equality as a cross-cutting priority. All our member states and all our candidates for having project financed by Horizon Europe should propose us a gender equality plan, and that will be one of the eligibility criterion. But now, today, I'm really proud for another concrete initiative, because I'm announcing this new initiative to support the women leading deep tech startups and give them a leg up to grow their company into the deep tech champions of tomorrow. This new initiative is called Women Tech EU. It will offer first-class coaching and mentoring to female CEOs and founders, as well as generous funding to help take their business to the next level. We'll be launching the very first call June this year, and we'll be selecting up to 50 promising deep tech startups for support. And today we are launching a call for mentors to support these women. With your experience, with your commitment, we can definitely help these women become tomorrow's deep tech champions. To all the inspiring innovators and business coaches out there, male and female, if you have what it takes to become a mentor, please sign up. We need your talents. So now I will stop here, because definitely, again, I'm so much convinced that fostering innovation means actively seeking out diversity and gender equality, and cultivating the conditions for them to thrive. And today, on this Women's International Day, let us celebrate the women leading deep tech innovation in Europe. And the 4 women on today's panel, dear Kinga, dear Mariya, dear Dora, dear Magdalena, you are the pioneers, the fighters. You are changing the face of the European innovation forever. And I would like really to say thank you very much for joining us on this very special occasion. and thank you for sharing now your incredible stories. I will give you the floor immediately. Up to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, for that very inspiring and important message. And now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. First of all, we have this morning with us Dora Palfi, who's originally from Hungary, but living and working in Sweden. Dora is the co-founder and CEO of ImagiLabs. With this company, she created ImagiCharm, which is a very cool gadget that makes programming and coding fun for young girls and teenagers. Dora, you are the graduate of EIC Digital Master School, and just last year you were named Cartier's Women Initiative Fellow and Forbes 30 Under 30 in Hungary. Congratulations and welcome to the panel. We very much look forward to hearing from you this morning in just a second. And Magdalena Jander, she's from Poland. You are the co-founder and CEO of Uvera. It's a company which has developed a UV protector extracted from natural microorganisms with no impact for the environment. Uvera was supported by EIT Health and has just secured 2.5 million funding from the EIC under the new Green Deal call. Congratulations and welcome to today's panel. And last but not least, Mariya Fátima Lucas, who's originally from Portugal, but living and working in Barcelona, Spain. Mariya, you're the co-founder and CEO of ZYMVOL. ZYMVOL is a company democratizing the use of computer simulations in the development of green chemistry. Would it be fair to say, Mariya, that you are EU's success story? You are the former Mariya Skłodowska-Curie Fellow, and your company, ZYMVOL, was supported by the predecessor to the EIC, the SME instrument. And just last year, you won the EU Prize for Women Innovators, which is a prize that rewards the most inspiring women entrepreneurs in Europe. Welcome, Mariya. And just to let you know that today we will be taking questions from the audience on Slido. The hashtag to find us under is Women in Tech. Again, Slido, Women in Tech. Don't forget to ask your questions, and we'll be here to answer after the start of the panel, which we are starting now. Welcome, ladies. As a first question, I'd really like to ask you what inspired you to create your companies? What were the kind of things that led you to create a deep tech company? What drives you as entrepreneurs? And maybe if I could start with Mariya, would you like to be first and tell us your story?
Hi, Kinga. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Commissioner, for the opportunity to be here today. It's really an honor to be among such fantastic women. My story is actually maybe similar to many other people. It was out of need. So I was a scientist for 15 years and I loved what I did, and I couldn't think of myself doing anything but research. But at some point, for family reasons, I was found in a situation where I didn't have a job here in Barcelona, and it was very difficult for me to pursue what I really wanted to do. So the only choice was basically create a company, and it never occurred to me to do anything but deep tech, because that's what I had dedicated my whole life to. It wasn't just an opportunity to do what I loved. I realized that it was also an opportunity to change at least the micro world around myself to the kind of company I wanted to work in. Myself as a scientist, I've never had a fixed term contract, for example. And, you know, we spend all our life studying, and you think you've got an education and you have a chance to do something, but I've never had a stable position. And my area, computational chemistry, is very much dominated indeed by men, although I've never felt discrimination. But as soon as I started a company, unfortunately, I have to say I did. And that's when I really realized, and it's sad to say that at 40 something, I realized that there was a bigger problem than the one that I was aware of. It's almost as if you need to feel it in your skin. I started going to different meetings throughout Europe and realizing that at the decision table, there were mostly men. There were hardly any women. And you mentioned before, many women have careers in deep tech, but then somehow along the line, they remain in junior positions. I can confirm this. It's not just a number. You see it. So for me, creating a company in deep tech is more than doing what I love, is an opportunity to allowing other people to do what they love, allowing the possibility to create a company at the image of what you believe the world should be like. You know, it's not only about a fixed term contract, it's allowing people to have flexible hours so that they can take care of their family if they have to, because it is still a limitation. I also think that men and women need to have the same opportunities. The laws in many countries are still not fair, even to men, in terms of, for instance, taking care of children. For me, the company, the deep tech company, is an opportunity for myself and hopefully for the people around me, and hopefully for green chemistry as well. I don't know if this answers your question, Kinga.
That's brilliant. That's a very inspiring story, and I hope that that will be a great contribution to exactly as you said, to computational biology, to computational chemistry, and to science. It's great to hear from you. And now maybe if I could switch to Magda. Magda, could you tell us what inspired you and how it all happened?
Yes, hello. I'm also really thankful for this invitation and the possibility to talk about the different, let's say, domain, because like for me, the deep tech before was mostly connected with the IT, but as I'm from the biotech industry, it's something completely different. So in like, as Mariya told about the chemistry and with the, let's say, the development of any product which has the impact for the society with all the regulations and everything, is the long-term distance. It's like you need to be really patient, you need to be really stubborn, you need to really fight for your ideas. And if there is something which is coming on your line, you are as the leader, the person who needs to say, okay, we will not give up, we will fight. And coming back to the inspirations, like from the early beginning, since I have started my studies, I was always doing the project which had the impact for the society, for the planet. I was doing the project which were close to the applications, in not the IT applications, but the applications in the industry. So beforehand, I was leading the project for the pharma. I was leading also project for the bio industry when I was working for the companies developing, for example, the biodiesel plant. And now I'm leading Uvera. Like it's the I can say the best story I had. That's the company who is developing the pure biotechnology to provide the society and the environment natural UV protector, which is safe for us and is safe for the environment, because there is like a lot of harmful effect from the UV protectors which are coming from the sunscreens which we have on the market. So like for me, always the impact was to change something, to not exactly to be the game changer, but to provide people with something new, with the new value, with any kind of the help. And in case of the Uvera, we have started from the friendship. Like we were three of us, the founders, and we have started the company with the investment fund. And then, you know, like after 2 years, we have already 20 people on board working every day on our innovation in 2 different countries with the experts around the world. So like the story is so inspiring even for me that like every day is different, and that's the main also driver for the everyday life.
Brilliant, Magda. Thank you so much. And Dora, could you share with us your story and what inspired you to create your company?
Of course, yes. But first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Commissioner, for the inspiring words, and also for all the work that you do to highlight women across Europe. So actually, my work, I guess, is very similar to that. And the reason why I have started ImagiLabs is because I believe that technology is our future. And I look at technology as an extremely powerful tool to solve problems and to create new companies, to create new products. And so it seems that women are not as actively involved with creating technologies and starting companies as men are. And so from my perspective, then us women don't have an equal chance to shape the future. So I really think that we need more diversity among the creators of technologies to be able to ensure that we really solve everyone's problems equally. And so that's how the idea came for wanting to start a company that would make it more fun and relevant for young women to get into programming, to get into technology. And so as Kinga has said it in the introduction, we've created a digital community. So we have an app that teaches programming, Python programming, so a real tangible coding language in a fun and visual way. And that comes with an accessory, a programmable accessory that makes learning to code really tangible for our users. And so in my perspective and what I have observed with our users and what really fuels my passion day after day is seeing young women actually enjoying programming with our solution and connecting with other women with whom they actually have a similar interest and with whom they can work together to become better coders, because that is actually one of the most important part for me in building my company ImagiLabs, is that I'm doing it with 2 other incredible women. And so having sort of peer models, as well as having role models, women who are a little bit ahead of me in this journey, has been really incredibly important in keeping me motivated and engaged, and having people from whom I can ask for support and inspiration when it is needed. So I've been working on ImagiLabs for 2.5 years now together with my co-founders, and we launched our product in 2020. So it's been about 7-8 months in the market, and it's just been an incredible roller coaster. But really what's keeping us motivated is this extreme focus on our vision to make sure that the next generation of technologists will be more equal. And what I often like to say is that maybe 10, 20 years from now in one of these panels, I'm hoping that there will be deep tech founders, female founders, who first learned to code on the ImagiLabs app and with the Imagi charm, really.
That's a brilliant story, Dora. Thank you so much. Ladies, thank you for sharing. I think what speaks through your messages is your passion to create the technology of tomorrow, but also your passion for making the world a better place, because all the things that you are doing actually have a lot of positive impact on the world. And that's absolutely wonderful to hear. Maybe, you could tell us a little bit about, you now started, you're running your company, and you're facing the next level of challenges. Could you talk a little bit about those challenges? What are they? What remains in the world today for women like you, for women trying to push forward the deep tech phenomenon? Maybe we could start, Dora, you just spoke, so maybe we come back to you.
Okay, thank you. I think, of course, one challenge that we're all facing is around financing. And I mean, financing is a challenge for any startup founder. But actually knowing the numbers and being aware of the European funding scene, if I'm not mistaken, last year, around 1% to 2% of all venture capital went to all female funded companies, and around 7-8% to mixed teams, and the rest went to all male funded teams. So I think something that's quite challenging is as much as you believe in yourself and you're pushing forward with your company, you're still seeing the lack of representation. And so finding that strength and that optimism that you really require as a founder, that I can make a difference and I can be that 1% or 2%, it is challenging at times. I won't lie. So I think financing is definitely one part of this equation that will need to be changed, and is hopefully changing. And here, of course, I like to point out that knowing personally other female founders, and that's why I love to attend panels like these as well, to meet those women who have been able to break the glass ceiling, right, is very motivating. And I'm really hoping that it can also serve as an example for others who are aspiring to start their own ventures.
Brilliant. And you, Magda, you also have already fundraised from some investors. Do you want to talk about those issues as well a little bit, and then other challenges that you're facing?
Well, I think that in case of the fundraising, I can admit that I had the same issues when I was leading my previous company, when I was looking for the bigger funds while I was leading oncological startup. And that at that point, I was looking for the money from the VC. And sometimes happened to me when I went to the discussion, I was only alone and in sitting in front of the table of the only man. And when I was presenting the presentation, they were like looking at some details, but then after the end they will say, okay, Magda, like we were not expecting that kind of the talk or that kind of the deep approach to the topic. And they were admitting that they were thinking that maybe the discussion will be not so deep with the lady. And I even once had that kind of the discussion in London with the VC when they told me that they were not expecting that the women can lead that oncological startup. And it was for me, we went to the really deep discussion. Finally, financing was not done because like of some legal points, and my co-founder was living in States, and there were like some other misunderstandings, like not misunderstandings, but things which were not possible to do. But like in case of the fundraising, I must admit the same. However, within the Uvera, we have mostly the private individuals who invest in the company. So like that's completely different way of talking with the private investor. And we have also one lady investor, which I'm really proud of because she's the biggest one, and then she invests the most of the money in the company. So I'm really proud of her, and I think that we'll be still, while looking for the money, we will also think about gender equity.
Okay, thank you for that, Magda. And Mariya, what kind of challenges remain for you? What would you like to see changed if you could have your perfect scenario?
Well, today, for example, we're talking about having a voice, right? As women, having a voice in an environment, in an ecosystem where indeed men seem to have a stronger voice, maybe from the time that they have been or the opportunities. But I also want to mention, as a European company, as a company coming from Barcelona, it's also very often difficult to have a voice. So we were able to enter the European market quite easily. Indeed, 100% of our revenue is not coming from Spain, but from abroad. So we are an international company working with more than 10 different countries. And in Europe, it was easy to prove the quality of the science behind what we were doing, because people did know throughout Europe what was the Barcelona Supercomputing Center where I worked previously, or the quality of the science that is done in Barcelona. But if you go, for instance, across the Atlantic and you talk with American companies, it's as if we don't exist. So still, I think European companies also need to raise their voice throughout the world, because there are countries like Germany that throughout the years have showed their capability in science, and it's unquestionable. But there are other countries, smaller. I come from Portugal, I'm living in Spain, and there are many other smaller countries in Europe that seem to still need to raise their voice to be able to be heard. So we had to go, we're almost 4 years old, and it's only now that we're starting to be able to enter, for instance, the North American market, which in biotechnology is a very strong market. But until we had shown that the technology behind what we're doing is valid and other countries have adopted it, it was almost impossible to enter in the North American market. So I think that's a challenge also for Europe. So we're seeing the enormous effort that the European Commission is putting into making European companies led by women or men more competitive in the world. But there's still a lot to be done. And I think all the work that, and I've seen it in the last few years, I think it is starting to reflect and giving us the tools to be able to compete with companies, for instance, in the United States that have huge resources to actually have a voice. So for me, that has been one of the difficulties I have faced in the company.
So, ladies, I guess financing is definitely an issue. The larger financing rounds make it easier for you to basically go through these obstacles and challenges that you have mentioned. I know we spoke earlier that it's very rare for you to meet female investors in the community, something that we've discussed, and surely that would also change matters if we had more females leading investments. I'd like to remind the audience that you can ask the questions on Slido under the hashtag Women in Tech. And maybe just, I'd like to switch a little bit back to how you work in your company. What do you do to attract more women into your workplace? What are the special things that you've discovered that you can make a more diverse workplace? What are the kind of things you need to put in place there? I know that Mariya is especially a leader in this matter, being from actually a mixed team. So it is real diversity there. Could you talk a little bit about the special things you do in your company to ensure that diversity grows and you have the best of what you can get from the diverse mix of employees and founders?
Thank you, Kinga. I'm not sure I'm doing something special. I think it's an attitude on the everyday, right? It's the fact that I voice what I think, and I believe that something has to be done. But for instance, I don't want someone to select me, for instance, for a panel or to be part of an advisory board just because I'm a woman and just to keep the numbers balanced, so I cannot do anything or promote anything in our company that will make any woman think that they have been hired just because we're trying to have a gender balanced company. Okay, so we don't do, we always hire the best candidate for every single position. But what we do see, and I have seen this in more than one interview, is that women, of course, especially the ones that have felt some kind of discrimination, listen and listen to what you're saying, for instance, in LinkedIn and the way you run your company and the values that you think are important. And I have had more than one woman come to an interview and say, I would come and work for you, simply even making less money, simply because I can see what you're doing and the effort that you're doing. And we see a huge amount of women applying to jobs in our company. And I think that's the trick. The huge amount of, because normally, for instance, in IT, we recently, some months ago, hired a system admin, and it's actually a woman. She was the best candidate, but how many system admins do you get, applying for a job? Hardly any. So I think it's a question of, showing what is important for you, showing that, your team can have flexible hours. They will have a stable position that will allow them to have a family. It's a number of factors. It's not one thing that you do. I think it's an attitude. Okay, because we really don't do anything in particular. There are no quotas. There no one, and I'm not even part of many of the hiring processes. Like the system admin, I was not part of it. It was actually one of the other co-founders who is a man, and he picked the best candidate, and it was a woman. So it's a continuous effort. I don't think it's anything in particular, and I'm sure other women and other men have other strategies in different companies and achieve the same results. But I think it's just keep on trying, and not giving up. I think that's it.
It's wonderful, Mariya, to hear, because you're a real role model for others, and that's a very inspirational story. Maybe Dora or Magda, could you tell us a little bit about being a role model for others? Have you also mentored maybe younger managers? I know that Dora, you as being the Forbes 30 under 30, that is clearly a very inspirational story just on its own, inspiring a huge number of younger kids trying to follow your footsteps. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Happy to talk about that. I think on this note, something I would like to point out, though, I feel like sometimes as female founders and entrepreneurs, it almost feels like we get this extra pressure that as women, and in my case, as a young female founder, maybe all my actions actually represent what female founders do, and almost feel like if I was to fail, then that means that female founders are failing. So you almost get this extra pressure and this extra spotlight, which is actually quite challenging. But that is exactly why I'm trying to use this and kind of like turning it around. And since the very, very beginning, I've been extremely transparent about the process of building a company. Every year I make an effort of writing a reflection. And then this, so my 2020 reflection was so much about what I call just-in-time learning, and about all the things that I had no idea about as a founder, and all the things that I learned just in time, or maybe a little too late, in order to help my business. And so in my perspective, it's just really important to be very honest and transparent about all the challenges that we're facing, and also about how things might just not work out. And so it's not about, not being afraid and not being aware of these challenges, but just doing it anyways. And so really, I think that's what I'm trying to instill into every young woman who's excited about starting their own ventures, that, there is a really, really high chance that we all fail with our startups. It's just how it is statistically, but we should do it anyways, because we're just going to learn a lot more in the process than we would if we hadn't tried. And we are going to make a difference, even just as we are starting out on this journey. And so that's probably the most important message that I'm always trying to pass on.
Yeah, if you don't try, you don't fail, but you also don't succeed. So that's very important, is to have a mindset of risk-taking and stress later, and not everything all at once, because that's the only way that we can make it to where we are. And I guess in these inspirational stories, Magda, you're also a mother of two. Could you talk a little bit about inspiring smaller kids with your persistence, with what you're building, and also tell us a little bit, and I know this is actually also one of the questions from Slido coming up, what is it like to combine being a mom and leading another startup in deep tech?
Well, actually, it's not an easy task. So like being the mother of two girls, having the family, and also the leading the startup, which is with the international recognition and with the impact and needs, it's always the playing with the time and, stealing one other to another. Well, in case of my two girls, Julia and Alicia, I'm doing my best to grow them up in with the curiosity. So like I'm always telling the story not till the end. So they need to dig into the end to find the details. I'm reading them a lot of books and the stories about the women, about the inspiring women like Mariya Skłodowska, like the other. There are like many different short stories when you can inspire even the young ladies, like little Magdas, let's say. However, with the students and with the people who are already thinking about creating the startup, I have some connections and I'm trying to do the mentorship within one leadership organization. And I have a lot of questions like how it started, like where was this point? And I'm not able to say when it was. Like it was just because I was looking for the solutions to the problems which are, without any kind of the even sometimes destination. So that's always looking for the unknown, and coming back to being the role model. I'm not I'm not thinking that I am. So like everyone has any kind of the drawbacks and kind of the problems when you're fighting with one thing and you are with your mind in the another story. However, I'm trying to surround myself with the people who can help me, who can inspire me, who can, within the company, who can support me with the topic, which I'm not able to do because of the time or because of my knowledge. In case of the family, I'm asking for help when I'm going abroad for some travels or whatever to take care of my kids. And in case of the private life, it's the same. So like I'm always trying to surround myself and to also to spend time with the people who I really love and with the people who I really also admire. That's the fruitful spending of time.
Brilliant. That's a really good story. Now, you three are from actually different parts in Europe, and you've lived in a number of other places as well. And this is one of the actually questions coming from the audience. Do you see differences between the regions, between different countries in Europe in terms of the possibilities and the obstacles facing women in setting up their companies and growing them? Do you see differences between parts of the world? Maybe could I start with Mariya? I know that she has been on the other side of the Atlantic earlier and now in two different countries in Europe. Maybe could you talk a little bit about that, Mariya? What are you seeing?
Well, to be totally honest, I only tried to create a company in Spain, so I'm probably not the most accomplished person to talk about differences in other countries. I think differences do exist for the better or the worse, because, you know, for instance, talking about Spain, which is the ecosystem that I know, there are more opportunities if you're in Barcelona and Madrid. There are other areas of the country where there are also, you know, accelerators, startup projects, mentors, but it's more difficult to find people to support you in your journey. So if I can see differences already within Spain, I can only imagine that throughout Europe, and if you compare to other countries, there will be differences as well. I think that this confinement and the way we have to relearn how to work might be an opportunity for the future, that it doesn't matter where you are, you will still have access to opportunities to create your company. Because I think we need to rethink about how, you know, it can't be that if you want to create a startup, you have to go to Silicon Valley. And even in the United States, they have noticed that, you know, you can go to San Diego, you can go to Texas, Austin, you know, you can create a startup pretty much anywhere, right? It's not like knowledge is in one single place anymore. But it is true that having resources, having the people, you know, next door that you can go and ask and do and make that question, did make it easier for you to create a company in certain cities other than others. But I think that's going to change, to be totally honest. And it's also up to us, right, to make that change. So if we want to be mentors, we can be mentors of anyone, in any part of the world. And likewise, for the mentors that we ask for support, we don't need to look for mentors only here in Europe or here in Spain. For myself, we have mentors from literally anywhere in the world. So if there are differences, I think yes, despite my lack of experience in other countries. But I think those differences will become less and less evident through the years, if we all make an effort to make them less evident.
Thank you, Mariya. And maybe over to Dora. You're Hungarian, you're living in Sweden. You have fundraised globally, actually. Could you talk a little bit about these differences that you're seeing and the approach?
Yes, correct. So, right, I'm from Hungary. I left Hungary when I was 18 years old. I lived in the Middle East, I lived in the US, I lived in South America, and I came back to Europe. And within Europe also, I lived in several countries. And I must actually say, it wasn't until I was in Sweden that actually my perspective about starting a startup has changed, because there was such a buzzing ecosystem here. But luckily, that is something that I'm seeing changing now quite a bit. So growing up in Hungary, I never thought of starting a company as a possibility for me. And it wasn't really something that people actively thought of doing, I would say. But in the recent few years, it has really shifted. For me, actually being in Sweden was one of the reasons why I started my company, just because there was a lot of access to financing at the beginning. And also there was just more role models, I would say. But again, I also haven't tried starting up my company in any other country except Sweden. But I must say that there was a lot of access to sort of like free support and mentoring in the beginning, which has really, really helped. But again, I'm seeing a huge shift in this, and I have personally actually have contributed a little bit to some of these programs in Hungary, and I take that to heart actually to speak at events, and even if I haven't started my company there, be a role model. And then finally, what I would just want to say is that, I mean, again, I just think it's really, really difficult to start a company anywhere. It's really difficult to fundraise anywhere. So I think it is more of a mentality question as well, because luckily there's more and more capital that's accessible. And actually, due to COVID, I would say this shift has become even faster. Like you mentioned, I have now fundraised globally. And so in my most recent round that we raised for ImagiLabs, we have had investors come from the US, but also investors who are in the same city as I am. But still, we handled all the conversations via Zoom either way, right? So why does it make a difference at this point? And I think that's a kind of an exciting change. It's actually making it easier to access capital, to access partners. Like Mariya said earlier, I noticed that to have customers in the US now has also become sort of easier, because everyone is on Zoom anyways. So there's no expectation that you would be able to meet physically. That had sort of opened up opportunities and borders.
Yeah, that was a question I wanted to actually ask you ladies about COVID, because, you know, the European market, companies have raised, I think, around 40 billion last year of capital. And women founders are getting a few percent of that, as we said, and actually it's gone down. So COVID has heavily and negatively impacted female fundraising. What are the opportunities for you? What are you seeing? Why do you think that is? On the one hand, there is the positive effect, like you just said, about the fact that people are accessible on Zoom, and in many ways it should actually be easier. But that has not happened. And I know that the same goes for also researchers and publications of research reports. Maybe Magda, could you talk a little bit about the impact that COVID has had on you and maybe some others that you know who are also trying to fundraise for their companies and trying to find clients internationally and grow?
I think that in case of the Uvera, it helps a lot. Like in case of the R&D, we are having more talks, and it's right now our natural way to communicate, to have the TC short TC every day, longer one once a week, and so on and so on. So I think that in case of the R&D, it's much more easier. In case of the financing and the fundraising, to build the connection, you need to get to know the people, and you need to spend some, I don't want to say the time, but to build the relation with a potential investor. So maybe it's easier to get to know the investors from the other countries and from the other continents, but to build the credibility and the longer relation, I think that the personal meeting is much more valuable than in case of that kind of the teleconference. And coming back to the traveling around the world and the different models and about the education. Before, I was living in Japan and I was also living in France, and these two different communities and two different approaches to the not only the women issue but also to the culture of business. When you need to negotiate through the meetings, when you cannot do it through the Zoom, especially with the Japanese clients and the Asian one, it's let's say that point. Like right now, today I'm in Dubai, and we are also having some business meetings because it won't be possible to do it through the emails. So there are some cultures when, despite of the COVID, you need to be there. But in case of the processes within the company, because Uvera is based in Spain, in Poland, so COVID and that kind of the communication helped a lot in case of the R&D processes.
Thank you, Magda. And Mariya, how has this last 12 months been for you?
Well, being a computational company, we kind of were already used to being able to work from pretty much anywhere. So for us, it was not a big issue. But I agree with Magda that for some negotiations and for some types of collaborations, you do need to have that physical meeting, because it does transmit trust. When more than having a 1 hour meeting, you actually go for lunch and people get to know you not only from the business point of view, but also that more personal and how you interact with people. So I do also agree that there has been some business that has been delayed or not closed because of the lack of that personal meeting. But also the other thing that I have noticed, and I think 2021 is changing, but in 2020 I think there was fear. And R&D is the business of uncertainty, of investing in the future. And when the future is so uncertain as it has been, and especially in 2020, R&D has kind of, at least from my personal experience in our company, became kind of second place, because there were other needs that had to be covered before R&D. So we sell R&D, and in that case, of course, we have been affected by the let's say less investment that was made last year. I can, however, say that 2020 looks the total opposite. It's as if now there is hope, and that the difficulties we are facing are just about to be overcome, and R&D as the motor, as the core of our society and of many companies, has, it looks, at least to me, become again a priority. So I've seen this shift in the last 6 months, and it's strange, because we saw like the drop, and it was always like nothing, and then suddenly everyone says, okay, there is hope, and if we stop investing in R&D, we're going nowhere anyway. So we need to keep on investing, and that's what I'm seeing right now, and I hope it continues, because otherwise it does put at least our company, and I'm sure many others in deep tech, in deep trouble. Let's put it that way.
Thank you, Mariya. Actually, that takes us to, I wanted to actually ask a final question about how you're seeing the future, about your predictions for deep tech for the next 5, for the next 10 years. What are the kind of technologies that you are excited about? What are the kind of sectors that you think will succeed, that have never succeeded at such speed before? If I could perhaps ask Mariya just to continue with her thoughts, and then the others.
Yeah, that's probably the most difficult question. So my entire professional career, I've seen computational chemistry grow from, doing a few atoms in the computer to now being able to do proteins, DNA, and I've been fortunate to actually witness a field growing. So I can't hope, I can't avoid saying that I think computational chemistry, computational physics, computational biology will be the big thing in the future. They already are today, but I think, because the equations are there, the computational power is there, and the need is there, I think it will grow. And also I think what is going to change, and I do hope it does change, is that until now science has been very much exploited for the economical benefit. I hope that in the future we start taking science as, the first person to ask, can we do this? How can we do this? So how will we do it? Before just saying, okay, how much money are we going to make out of this? And I think science is fundamental in answering those questions. So I don't know which fields, but I do think computational chemistry will be one that in the next 10 years will completely change the way we see the world.
Brilliant. And what about you, Magda? What do you think? What do you see in the future?
I must admit with Mariya, though I'm coming from the deep biotech, when we are like upscaling through the, let's say, really classical way with the bioreactors and the models, like I must admit that any kind of the introduction of the IT to the processes, to understand how it works, to understand the mechanism of action, to not try, at the different models, but just like, to have any kind of the pathway which you can follow will be the shortcut for the R&D, which in the science is crucial. So instead of wasting your time on the 1, 2, 3 years experiences, because it's the really long term within the biotech, you can do the same in 1 year. And I'm really wishing that we can do it with the drug development, that one day we will be able to design the molecule, which will be, the clue for any kind of the disease. It's more or less coming right now for different kind of the therapies right now. But I think that it will change a lot in the next 10, 15 years. And in 10, 50 years, I hope we will have the cure for most of the diseases.
And Dora?
Yes, I think, well, I'm the odd one out because I'm not coming from that deep of a technology background. But what I'm always most excited about is how the use cases of new technical innovation are expanded. And of course, always advocating for diversity. I'm just excited about how there's a growing awareness around the lack of diversity, and, a problem well defined is half the solution. So just not making the assumption that the white male body is the average body that we have to develop medicine for, and like having more diversity among the creators and more sort of awareness, I think will help us create much better solutions with all the technical innovations. So be that in medtech, or be that with VR, or be that with really any other technology. So I'm just excited about how we will be able to expand the diversity of applications and use cases.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Dora. I know that there is a question from the audience about signing up as a mentor for the Women Tech EU initiative. I believe more information on that will be available on the EIC part of the website. shortly. So please do sign up. We do really encourage you. We want to build the largest possible pool of great experienced professionals who can help startups, and also hopefully network with each other, which is another value add, I think, because the more we talk, the more we learn from others. So that would be absolutely fantastic if you sign up. Thank you so much, ladies. Maybe if I could just ask each of you just for one inspiring sentence for the young generation before we go. And I think this might be a great start from Dora.
Wow. I mean, I think I already spoke to this. It's really, to me, about just trying and getting out there. So what I would say is don't let sort of like perfectionism be the enemy of the good and of trying. So that's really my philosophy in entrepreneurship. You know, just get started and don't get paralyzed by trying to do things perfectly.
Thank you. And Mariya?
I agree 100% with Dora. Personally, being afraid of pretty much everything. I would say, just don't give up and don't ever let anyone tell you that it can't be done. Make sure you figure out on your own that it can't be done before you let anyone tell you that it can't.
Brilliant. And Magda, what about
I must say, be curious. Just, look for your pathway, try, explore, discover. Just like don't try to overcome your own internal obstacles. Like don't give up. And that's the most what I can say for the young ladies with the starting of the startups.
Brilliant. So keep trying, don't give up, be curious, take the risk, and just go for it. Try to discover it. Thank you so much. And then if I could now please welcome back the Commissioner, Mariya Gabriel, for her closing remarks for the conference.
Thank you, dear Kinga, dear Magda, dear Dora, dear Mariya. Thank you very much for sharing with us your inspiring stories. I must say that I took notes very carefully. And there is so much strong messages today, because when you say, Mariya, allowing other people to do what they love, that's the added value to have more women in deep tech and in new technologies. When you say, Magda, the impact is to change something, and this something is human-based. We have values. There is friendship. There is support. I very, very much love this message. And what I hope is that, of course, every day is different, but different doing things better for women in Europe. And Dora, I fully agree with you. Technology is a tool in order to have this future where the most important is to have equal chances to shape it. I think that the message is extremely, extremely strong. And I'm definitely here. I agree with you that we need that the next generation of technologies will be more equal. And what we have seen today is that thanks to all of you, we have a strong base, we have assets, we have already identified challenges. Thank you very much for raising these issues of financing, of expertise. Definitely here, Kinga, we need more women-led venture capital funds, and we are working on this. I count very much on all of you. And I very much agree with Mariya when she said European companies need to raise their voice. And I think that with voices like yours, we have better chances to be heard, because it's not only, the goal is not only to speak, but of course to touch as much as possible people and to work together. So what I would like to say, it's really thank you very much for your inspiring stories. Thank you very much for again raising the challenges, but again pointing out that you have solutions to these challenges. That's the added value of the women actions. And thank you very much for two important messages. One is definitely we need to show to all our young girls and young boys that failure is an experience, not a fatality. Please don't give up. I think that it's something very important, and we need to work to change this mindset in Europe. And the other message for me, it's very clear. Europe is this place to be if you'd like to create a startup or to see your startup growing. And with women like you have the best chances, not only to do it, but to have friends and to do things in bigger scale. So thank you very much. That's my message. Again, what I would like to say as final word is that together with you, what we can see is that 8th of March is just one day of a year, and that's 365 days that we need to continue to work together to give more visibility to women like you, and count on me for that. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. And thank you to our panelists this morning. Thank you, Dora, Magda, and Mariya. It's been a real pleasure spending the last hour in your company. I know there is still a long way to go to achieve perfect gender equality in tech, in startups, in venture, but the first step is to recognize the problem, to talk about it, and to raise awareness. And I think this has been done so well today. And when I hear your stories, I have a lot of faith that things are going to change more rapidly, and that they are changing, and that there is a change in the consciousness, in culture, and in technology. And the EU is doing a huge part to change these things. We just heard from Commissioner Gabriel about the new initiatives that are planned for this year. And myself, being a member of the EIC Advisory Board, I will continue to support the EIC in creating opportunities for women wherever they may be. There's a very important event just coming up on the 18th of March, where I will be joining Commissioner Gabriel on the official launch of the fully fledged European Innovation Council. We're going to be talking about opportunities for women entrepreneurs and launching the 2021 edition of the EU Prize for Women Innovators. I very, very much count on seeing you all there. And please remember that when women succeed, we all succeed. Thank you so much for a great morning. Thank you.